Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class we will learn Tosfos Dibra Maschel Yediyes Atuma Chulu. Let's begin by first presenting the flowchart of the Gemara so we can see what Tosfos addresses and what he explains in the context of the Gemara. So Tosfos is going to discuss the part of the Mishnah in Shavuos where it says Yediyes Atuma Shtayim Shein Arba. Let's begin with the general outline. The Mishnah in Shavuos taught that Yediyes Atuma Shtayim Shein Arba are two cases that are four. Tosfos will ask that it seems better to count halames atuma instead of yediyas atuma. It's better to count the state of helim than yediyah. Yediyah is the awareness that the person knows that he's tamei, or that the food is hektish or the place is makom hamikdash. And helim is the state when the person is unaware, he forgot that he is tamei, or that the food was hektish, or that the place was makom hamikdash. The second thing Tosfos will explain is why by Shabbos and Shavuos it doesn't say Yediyas HaShabbos and Yediyas HaShavuos. Only by Tumah does it say Yediyas HaTumah, not by Shabbos and Shavuos. Why is that? Let's begin. The Mishnah in Shavuos says Yediyas HaTumah Shtayim Shein Arba. So before we start the Tosfos, just give some background information to help in the understanding of Tosfos. The Gemara in Shavuos asks why we only count a total of 4 Yediyas if there's really a total of 8. If we look at it, each case, there are 4 cases, and each case has 2 yediyas. Let's take the first case. The person is aware that he's tamei. He then forgot that he was tamei, and at the time that he forgot, he ate something that was hektish, and then he remembered, he became aware again that he was tamei. So we have in this one case 2 states of awareness, one before and one after. So too when the person entered the makom hamikdash. First he was aware that he was tamei, and then he forgot, and then he became aware again. And those are the shtayim. Shein arba is when the awareness was not about the tumah, but rather related to the food being hektish or the place being makom hamikdash. So the Gemara in Shavuos asks why we only count a total of 4 yediyos if there's really a total of 8. The Gemara presents 2 answers over there. And one answer is we only count the first set of yediyos, since they are unique in that we don't find the need for such a yediyah anywhere else. Let's take for example Shabbos. A person that did a malach on Shabbos and then realized afterwards that it was Shabbos, he needs to bring a carbon. All that's necessary is that he didn't realize it was Shabbos, he was machalal Shabbos, he didn't have awareness, and then afterwards he became aware that it was Shabbos and that he did a malacha. There's no need for the original awareness to be there. It doesn't have to be that first he was aware of Shabbos, then he forgot, and then he became aware again. As long as he wasn't aware that it was Shabbos and he did a malacha and became aware afterwards, he needs to bring a carbon. The only place we find the need for there to be an original yediyah is by tumah. And that's why the Tana says Yediyas HaTumah Shtayim Shein Arba. How he's able to say Yediyas HaTumah Shtayim Shein Arba. How could he say there's 4 if there are 8? He's able to choose to speak about the first ones. Why focus on the first and not the second? Because they're different. They're unique. I'm only talking about the yediyas that are unique to tumah. That's one answer the Gemara gives. The second answer the Gemara gives for how we can say there are 4 yediyas when there are really 8 is because we're only counting the second set of yediyas, because those are the ones that lead to the chi of carbon. It's only because the person became aware afterwards that he performed an isser is he chayiv to bring a carbon. So Tosfos over here asks, why doesn't it say halamas atuma? We explained how you can count 4 yediyas even though there are 8. Tosfos now asks, why don't we say halamas atuma shtayim shein arba? This way we can avoid the question. Why count yediyas? That leads to a question if we could just count halamis. Halamis are only 4. Case 1 is when the person forgot he was tamei, 1 helim, and at that time ate something that was hektish. Case 2 is he forgot he was tamei and entered makom hamikdash. Shein arba, the other 2 cases are he forgot the food was hektish and he ate it while he was tamei, or he forgot that the place was makom hamikdash and he entered it while being tamei. There's a total of 4. It's preferable to count the halamis and that way avoid questions. The Gemara in Shavuos only resolves how we can count 4 yediyas if there are really 8. Tosfos is asking that even if we can explain why we only count 4 yediyas, it still doesn't explain why we count yediyas instead of halamis if counting yediyas brings up a question. Rather count halamis and avoid the question, Tosfos asks. And Tosfos answers that the answers presented in the Gemara of Shavuos are not just enough to justify and permit us to count 4 yediyas when there are 8. They actually make the choice of yediyas, the counting of yediyas as their choice, more preferable than counting halamis. Let's see how those very answers that permitted us to count 4 don't just make it okay to count 4, but they actually make it attractive to count those 4, and therefore to count those yediyas and not the halamis. We can use the answer from the Gemara there. We are counting the first yediyas since we don't find such a concept anywhere else in the Torah. We prefer to count yediyas atuma rather than halamas atuma, because by counting yediyas we're counting something unique to Tumah. Whereas if we count Halamis, that's a general thing that exists in many dinim. There's a helam of Shabbos, a helam of other things as well. So we prefer to count Yediyas, although it brings up a question, because it has something unique and really connected to this case of Tumah. And the second answer can also be used as well. We only count the second Yediyas since they bring the Chiyuv Carbon. The fact that we only count the second Yediyas because they bring to the Chiyuv Carbon actually makes counting Yediyas more attractive than counting Halamis, because Yediyas is a significant factor, the most significant factor. The second set of Yediyas are the most significant factor in the story because they lead to the actual Chiyuv. So we prefer to count the second set of Yediyas over the Halamis, since the second set of Yediyas lead to a carbon, even though by counting Yediyas it leads to a question. In other words, the answers of the Gemara don't only allow us, and they don't just answer the more pressing question of how can you say there are 4 cases if there are 8. It also answers the less pressing question, but a question nonetheless, that even if we can count 4 Yediyas, why count Yediyas when it leads to a question if we can avoid it by counting Alamis? So in other words, not only isn't it a problem to say Yediyas, it's actually better. Now Tosfos continues and addresses a question, and that is, he bavarns a question here, and in this we'll see in a moment he addresses a question more directly. According to this lashon, according to the first answer, that we're counting the first set of Yediyas because they are unique to Tumah, we can't anymore ask, why doesn't it say Yediyas Shvuas, Yediyas HaShvuas, and Yediyas HaShabbos? Because we don't have that set of Yediyas by Shvuas and Shabbos. Tosfos continues, also according to this lashon, where here it would seem, let's count Yediyas HaShabbos. Let's count Yediyas HaShavuos. Let us count the part in the story that leads to the Chiyuv Carbon. Says Tosfos, no. Also according to this lashon, that we're counting the Yediyah that leads to the Chiyuv Carbon, we don't count Yediyas by Shavuos and Shabbos. And the reason is, because by Shavuos and Shabbos there are actually 4 cases that can be counted without Yediyas, which is not so by Yediyas HaTumah. In other words, by Shavuos and Shabbos we actually have 4 cases: the Ani doing Achnasa, the Ani doing Haitzah, the Usher doing Achnasa, the Usher doing Haitzah. Also by Shavuos we actually have 4 cases: I will eat, I won't eat, or a person takes an oath, I did not eat, or I did eat. We actually have the 4 cases. When we have 4 cases, there's no question that's what we're going to count. It's only by Tumah when we don't actually have 4 cases. We only have 2 cases. A person was Tameh, and then either ate Hektish, or the person was Tameh, and then entered the Makom HaMikdash. The only distinction, the only way we create 4 cases is because it depends what he forgot. What did he forget? Did he forget he was Tameh when he ate Hektish? Or when he went into the Mikdash? Or did he forget that the food was Hektish, or that the place was a place of a Mikdash? So since by Tumah we don't actually have 4 cases, then it's appropriate to count the subtleties that distinguish the cases, what he forgot, or what he was aware of and then forgot. And then it would be appropriate to say we're going to choose Yediyas, the awarenesses, over the Halamis when he forgot, because there's an advantage like we explained. But by Shavuos and Shabbos, where we actually have 4 cases, there's no reason and there's no way that we would count a subtlety of the Yediyah. In other words, the only case where we even entertain using Yediyas as what we count is when the cases themselves don't amount clearly to 4. Then we have to count the subtleties.